My family treated me like I didn't exist for 30 years. You're a failure. That's what I heard. Then I revealed my multi-million-dollar portfolio, and the entire room went silent. Take a seat. If you've ever gone to a family gathering and pretended not to notice the obvious favoritism, this will probably resonate. My name is Jake. I'm 30, and for most of my life, I was the invisible child in my own house. You know the type. The kid told maybe next year while watching his sister, the golden child, unwrap another expensive gift she'd break in a month. The kid who learns the value of money while his sister uses dad's credit card like play cash, and who teaches himself to cook because no one is ever home. That was me, quiet, overlooked, and dismissed. My younger sister, Brenda, 3 years younger, was everything my parents claimed I wasn't. The list was endless: athletic, talented, charismatic, full of potential. She was the one collecting trophies, traveling for out-of-state tournaments, long training camps coached by well-known athletes. My parents didn't just support her goals, they funded them like investors. I, meanwhile, was the tech-interested kid constantly told to stay realistic whenever I mentioned wanting to build a business. For years, I didn't even feel angry. It was simply normal. That's the dangerous part of favoritism. It doesn't always show up in yelling. Sometimes it's quiet. You mention something you care about, and you get a shrug, a half-hearted, proud of you, or we'll talk later, said while scrolling through a phone. But here's the part they don't expect. I didn't grow bitter. I got busy. I started small. While Brenda played varsity and got applause from the stands, I worked on school projects, building websites, fixing neighbors' laptops, learning SEO, coding, and selling inexpensive domains. I heard about her game-winning goals or how she might get recruited while coming home from my part-time job at a hardware store. Mom would celebrate. Dad would crack open a beer in her honor. I was expected to stay quiet so I wouldn't distract her. And the resources matched the attention. They spent nearly $25,000 on a GoPro package she never used, a full European cruise with her friends, and her solo graduation trip. She came back with blurry photos and a tan. I got a generic Hallmark card with my name scribbled inside and a $60 Amazon gift card. I still remember my mother's explanation, something close to, "Well, Jake, you're so independent. We assumed you'd want to do something on your own." College? Fully funded for her. Books, car allowance, dorm, everything. For me, either take student loans or don't go. I chose not to, not out of pride, but because I knew they wouldn't co-sign, and I didn't want to start life buried in debt. Instead, I used that time to learn everything I could about real estate, digital marketing, and the hidden corners of the internet people only look at when they make money. Within a few years, I was managing social media accounts for real estate agents, small businesses, and brokers. The real profit was in property, and I realized early that the agents were just the public face. So I saved strictly. No fancy purchases, no dining out, no vacations. I drove a rusted Corolla until the windows stopped working and stayed in the same rundown apartment. I bought my first duplex at 26. By 28, I owned 5 more. At 30, I have a solid portfolio worth several million, technically. Quiet progress. No posts, no showing off. My family had no idea. I didn't see a reason to tell them. What would they say now? That they were finally proud? Which brings me to the reunion. Walking into my uncle's lake house felt like the universe had set the stage. A sunny Saturday, relatives carrying cups of sangria and plates of barbecue. People complimenting Brenda's girlfriend for almost getting a job at a local sports network. My mom bragged about her connections. I stood by the patio with a watered-down soda, smiling and nodding. No one asked me what I'd been doing. Not once. Then my cousin Emma, curious as always, walked over and unintentionally triggered everything. "Hey Jake, weren't you on some podcast? My friend sent me a clip about house hacking and rental income." Brenda stopped showing off her new watch. My mom laughed. I laughed too. Jake on a podcast? Must be a mistake. He's always into those little online things. I planned to brush it off. "Yes, I was," I said. But Emma kept going. She pulled up her phone. There it was on her Instagram story. A repost from a real estate page with 500,000 followers. My face in the thumbnail. My name in the caption, discussing long-term rentals. Brenda's eyebrows shot up. "Wait, that's actually you?" Conversations stopped. People stared. "Yeah," I said casually. "I've been investing in real estate the last few years. It's been going well." Brenda scoffed. "Real estate? Like flipping houses? What do you even know about that?" I shrugged. Silence followed. "Enough to own 9 properties," I said. You could hear plastic forks hit plates, and that was only the beginning. I could feel years of tension rising, my uncle watching closely, my mom's smile fading, Brenda's jaw tightening. Then Brenda said the 5 words that set everything off. "You didn't earn any of it." Have you ever heard something so disconnected from reality, your brain pauses? That was me. Her voice was sharp, her face red. "You just mooched off the family like always." Everyone froze. Mom gave an awkward laugh, but Brenda kept going. She stepped forward. "You think you're some big shot? You buy a few houses and suddenly you're better than us? You wouldn't be anywhere without this family. We supported you." I actually laughed, bitterly. "Supported me? Really?" I looked around the patio. People I grew up with. They stayed silent, some pretending not to listen. "Support me?" I repeated. "Like when you got a $25,000 graduation cruise and I got a $60 gift card? Or when mom and dad paid everything for your college and told me to handle it myself?" Dad's face tightened. "That's not fair. You said you didn't want to go to college because we couldn't afford it." I raised my voice. "You said I was too independent for help. But when Brenda needed a new laptop, done. Her car broke, you bought her a replacement. I walked to work for 8 months through snow, and you never even asked if I needed a ride." Brenda scoffed. "You could have asked." "Why?" I replied. "To be reminded again that I don't matter?" Something inside me finally broke open. All the quiet years, the forced smiles, the overlooked birthdays, everything came out. "You've always had it easy, Brenda," I said calmly, "and instead of appreciating it, you act like you earned it. But the truth is, you've never fought for anything." She stared at me. "Oh, so now you're the victim?" "No, I'm just done pretending." Then the moment of betrayal happened. Mom stepped between us with her usual tight-lipped expression. "Jake, this isn't the time or place." Of course, because nothing could expose Brenda's perfect image. "You're defending her?" I asked. "You're making a scene," she replied. "Whatever this is, we'll discuss privately." That's when it hit me. There was no misunderstanding. She meant it. In her eyes, I was the problem. Not the favoritism, not the years of neglect. That realization hurt more than I expected. Then Dad added, "We're proud of you, son, but there's no need to show off." I hadn't mentioned a single dollar. I hadn't bragged, displayed a car, shared numbers, nothing. I just confirmed what someone else brought up. Yet somehow, I was the one showing off. Brenda stood there, arms crossed, satisfied. And I finally saw the truth. This wasn't a one-time issue. It was a lifelong pattern. I had just never been in a position to recognize it. "You know what?" I said, voice unsteady. "You're right. This isn't the place. Because I'm realizing I don't have a place here." My Uncle Robert shifted, concerned, but said nothing. I walked toward the lake, gripping the railing. My heart raced, not from anger, but from disappointment. The version of me who kept waiting for approval, he ended that day. I still hope someday they'll say, "We're sorry. We're proud of you." I stood by the water, trying to calm down, when I heard footsteps behind me. Brenda called out, "Naturally, now don't leave." I didn't even look at her. "You wanted attention, right? Well, you got it," she added. I didn't want attention. I wanted respect. I felt I had earned more than she ever would because I worked for everything I had, while she grew up with every advantage. "You think owning a few buildings makes you better than me?" she snapped, visibly irritated. I finally turned toward her. "You're still the same insecure person you've always been," I said calmly. "And you're still the same spoiled kid who throws tantrums whenever she isn't the center of the world." Her jaw tightened. "At least Mom and Dad love me," she shot back. I didn't react. "Yeah," I muttered. Her expression shifted, slightly lowering. "They do," she said quietly. "You can have them." I turned away, ready to leave in silence. None of this mattered anymore. I had outgrown all of it, every bit of it. I walked across the lawn toward the porch to grab my keys. That's when I heard the voice that changed everything. Uncle Robert stood near the grill and said loudly, "Actually, Jake earned every bit of what he has. And maybe if any of you paid attention, you'd know why." Everyone looked around. Brenda froze. Uncle Robert stepped forward, wiping his hands on a towel, his face unreadable. "You all treat him like he just got lucky, like money just landed in his hands. But I've watched him hustle since he was 16. He used to clean my gutters and fix my broken laptop for almost nothing. You remember that, Jake?" I nodded, unsure where he was going with this. "He built my company's first website for free. Spent weekends fixing my team's systems. Never asked for a single dollar. That kid saved us thousands when we couldn't afford proper IT support." He took a breath. "I even offered him 2 jobs. He turned both down because he wanted to build something on his own." The silence was thick. Mike glared at my father. Dad tried to speak, but didn't. "And what did you do?" Mike said, stepping in. "You told her to stop wasting time on the computer and get a real job, while she was building a business from scratch." His voice stayed steady. "You all looked down on her." Brenda muttered something under her breath. "And now that she's successful, you act like it just happened by chance," Mike continued. Someone tried to interrupt. "That doesn't mean she didn't have help." "Who helped you, Brenda?" Mike cut in. "Not you, not your parents, not anyone here. You had every door already open for you. She had to build her own, and you walked through it like it belonged to you." The air felt heavier. No one moved. Mike turned to me. "You don't owe anyone an explanation. You built this yourself. Don't ever let anyone take that from you." I couldn't speak, but Brenda couldn't handle the silence. "She's manipulating all of you," she shouted, her voice cracking. "She's always been fake. She's trying to make me look bad." Mike stayed calm. "No, you did that on your own." Red-faced and shaking, Brenda rushed toward me and jabbed her finger into my chest. "You think you're better than me? You're nothing. You think owning a couple buildings makes you successful? You're a fluke." I stayed still, silent. I just looked at her. Because I didn't see anger. I saw fear. She finally understood the truth. I had become everything she claimed to be. Anne. No one was going to shield her from the consequences. Driving away from that reunion, I didn't feel victorious, not even close. I didn't feel proud. The praise didn't matter. I didn't replay Uncle Mike's words with a smile. Honestly, I barely remembered any of it. All I heard was Brenda's voice. All I saw was my mother's expression, like a blurry picture. I drove for hours that night, unsure where I was going. At one point, I was in a gas station parking lot 3 towns away, staring at a flickering sign advertising microwave burritos. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry. I just felt empty, like the air had been pulled from my chest, leaving nothing but a quiet, hollow space. You're told from a young age that hard work and persistence will eventually be recognized, that your parents will one day notice your efforts and acknowledge your progress. We were mistaken. They didn't celebrate achievement. They saw it as an irritation, a threat, and a reminder that they had backed the wrong child. After that realization, I stopped replying to family messages. I ignored voicemails and skipped birthday gatherings. Most of the texts came from distant relatives anyway. None of them wanted the full story. They just sent surface-level messages like, "You okay?" or "You really reacted back there." What they truly wanted was for me to smooth things over and resume being the responsible one. My entire life, I had been that person, the one who absorbed the comments so the day wouldn't be disrupted, the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. But I no longer felt like that version of myself, and I wasn't eager to return to him. For weeks, I neglected my business. My inbox filled up. Client emails went unanswered. I barely checked the rent payments on the property manager portal. Some days, I didn't leave my apartment. I didn't respond to friends. I didn't even open the curtains. I wasn't depressed exactly. I was simply drained. The kind of exhaustion that settles deep and isn't fixed by sleep. One evening, while scrolling on my phone without thinking, I came across an old picture I'd been tagged in. It was Brenda and me at one of her soccer games years ago. I must have been about 18. She posed proudly with her medal, while I stood off to the side, holding her water bottle. I looked like a spectator in my own family's life, and the truth struck me. I had always been on the sidelines. Quietly working, quietly waiting, hoping someone would eventually pull me into the center. They never did. Maybe it was time to stop waiting. The next morning, I opened the blinds, made a real breakfast, and shaved. I pulled my laptop from beneath a stack of unopened mail and started working through the backlog. It felt like flipping a switch that had been off for weeks. Step by step, I rebuilt my routine. Client meetings, property walkthroughs, scheduling repairs, checking tenant portals, adjusting SEO campaigns. Each task pulled me a little further out of the fog. Then something unexpected happened. An email arrived from a real estate investing podcast I had been on 8 months earlier. The host had seen the viral video my cousin Emma posted from the reunion. The clip had reached over 2 million views on TikTok, shared with the caption, "Real estate investor gets ambushed by jealous family." The host wanted a follow-up interview. I almost said no. I didn't want more attention. But then I understood this wasn't about attention. It was about owning my story. A week later, the interview was released. There was no drama. I didn't expose private details or insult my family. I simply talked about being underestimated, about building something from the ground up, and recognizing your own worth when no one else does. And then, something unexpected happened. Dozens, then hundreds of messages came in. Not fans, but people who related. One man wrote, "I thought I was the only one. I used to take 2 buses to work because my brother got a car at 16. I just opened my 3rd salon." His words broke something open in me. I wasn't alone. I never had been. Another woman shared, "My parents never once said they were proud of me." But the message that stayed with me most came from someone named Jaden. "You helped me stop waiting for their approval. I wanted more." As I rebuilt my life, I also grew in new ways. I launched a YouTube channel, partnered with someone from the podcast to acquire a storage facility, and bought 2 additional multifamily properties. I shared straightforward advice on house hacking, credit building, and spotting undervalued homes. Nothing flashy. Going viral wasn't the goal. I just kept showing up, and eventually, people noticed. I didn't expect Brenda to message me, but she did. No greeting, just a comment about me becoming famous after a family argument. I stared at the message. I hadn't heard from her since the reunion. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. Instead, I replied simply, "Truth matters more than attention." She didn't respond, but silence wasn't comfort. It was a sign. The warning became clearer a few weeks later. My mom called first, leaving a voicemail with just enough emotion to sound sincere. "Jake, can we talk? Your sister's having a hard time. She didn't mean what she said." I didn't call back. Then my dad emailed, short and blunt. "Your mother is worried. Don't let a small misunderstanding tear the family apart." Misunderstanding. I deleted it. The real shock came next. A real estate investor I had previously worked with called to tell me someone had reached out, pretending to be me, trying to get bank routing details, financial records, and confirmation of transactions. They caught it quickly, but the meaning was clear. Someone was trying to damage me, and only 2 people knew enough to attempt something like that. My sister was one of them. That's when I realized this wasn't stopping. It wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was about maintaining control. Brenda had always seen herself as the dominant one in the family, convinced I would stay in her shadow no matter what I achieved. But now the roles had shifted, and she couldn't handle it. So I tightened everything. I froze my credit, updated passwords, added 2-factor authentication to every account, and asked a lawyer friend to draft cease and desist letters for any suspicious activity. I wasn't panicking. I was preparing. This next phase wasn't only about protecting myself. It was about no longer staying on defense. And then the opportunity presented itself. A family gathering. One more event. This time, I wouldn't be the one slipping in quietly. The invitation hadn't even arrived yet, but that moment was already forming. It came in a navy blue envelope made of thick cardstock, the gold cursive lettering trying a bit too hard to seem elegant. Inside was the invitation. "Please join us in celebrating the 40th wedding anniversary of Michael and Diane, my parents." It looked more like an invitation to a formal gala than a family celebration. I read it twice, once for meaning, once for details. I was expected to attend, or rather, they needed me there. That was new. You don't go from being the family ghost to receiving embossed invitations unless something has changed. I was sure it wasn't about reconciliation. No one had apologized. No late-night calls admitting mistakes. No attempts to make peace. Just a sudden interest, one I didn't trust. No late-night "we messed up" calls. No attempts at reconciliation. Just a sudden, unexpected interest. And after everything that happened at the reunion, I didn't believe it for a second. I kept the envelope on my counter for a week. Every time I picked it up, I couldn't help but smile. They had no idea I'd been waiting for this moment. I wasn't planning to show up to make peace. I was going in prepared. No more walking in quietly, hoping someone would acknowledge me. This time, I would show up with clarity, direct, firm, and impossible to overlook. But before I made my move, I needed to understand theirs. My cousin Emma was the first person I reached out to. She was the one who unintentionally stirred the drama at the reunion by mentioning my podcast interview. Emma had always been sharp, observant, and willing to share information if you treated her to a matcha latte. We met at a cafe near my place. The moment she saw me, she grinned. "Jake, the prodigal son returns," she joked. I barely smiled. I was gathering information. She leaned in. "You want the truth or the family-friendly version? Just tell me the real one." Lowering her voice, she explained, "Your mom has been in damage control mode since the reunion. Some relatives have been talking about you, your business. The podcast, everything. Even Uncle Robert asked whether you were investing for the family or just yourself." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Emma continued. "Yeah, your dad got defensive, said you were doing your own thing, but it didn't matter. People know now. And let's just say some folks don't like it, especially Brenda." She took another sip and added, "And now they're hosting this anniversary party. Guess who's helping organize it?" I didn't need to ask. It was obviously Brenda. "She's treating it like the event of the year," Emma said. She even invited a local news reporter she worked with during an internship. "I think she's trying to change the narrative or make herself look good." Brenda had always been focused on appearances. Even as a teenager, she spent more time fixing her hair than studying. If she attended an event, it became about her. And now, she likely didn't want my presence interfering with the image she was trying to present. "Let me guess," I said. "They expect me to show up, behave politely, and clap while Brenda gives a speech about family legacy." Emma smiled. Exactly. This wasn't reconciliation. It was optics. They wanted to maintain the image that I was the quiet, reliable older brother in the background, while Brenda remained the center of attention. Consistent, unnoticed, and secondary. But I wasn't interested in fitting that role anymore. If they wanted a presentation, I had one prepared. The first step was timing. I didn't RSVP. I didn't send a message. I made sure they had no idea whether I planned to attend. Let them wonder. Let Brenda worry about whether I might show up and disrupt her carefully constructed plan. The second step was preparation. For the next 2 weeks, I focused on organizing my story, not manipulating it, just collecting proof. I created a clean visual portfolio of my properties, with photos, timelines, tenant testimonials with consent, and performance statistics. Not to brag, but to make it unmistakably clear that my work was real and earned. I updated my LLC documents so they were orderly, finalized, and ready to present if needed. I had recently refinanced a few properties at great rates, but my strongest asset was a new purchase I hadn't told anyone about. A small but promising mixed-use commercial building with 2 retail tenants already in place and a third in discussion. It was close enough that certain relatives would recognize the address. That mattered because the building used to belong to one of my dad's old poker friends, the same man who once told me tech people had no place in real estate. His son, burned out and ready to sell, gave me the property at a discount. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was organized, confident, and intentional. I wasn't going in to show off. I was going in to reclaim my narrative. Then, 3 days before the anniversary event, Uncle David called. "You going?" he asked. "No, I said automatically. He paused. Just letting you know they're planning something. What kind of something? Not sure, but Brenda's been talking with your dad a lot. Sounds like they're putting together a legacy montage. And just so you know, you're barely in it. I exhaled quietly, of course. Remove anything that doesn't match the version of history they prefer. That was all the motivation I needed. I'll be there, I said, and this time I would be prepared. The day of the celebration was rainy and gray, as if even the weather couldn't decide how to feel. I arrived intentionally late. The event was held in a rented country club ballroom, where white linens and chandeliers tried to disguise the cheap wine and budget centerpieces. Brenda spotted me first. The moment our eyes met, her jaw tightened. I gave her a calm, casual nod. She looked like she wanted to break something. My parents were nearby, speaking with guests. When Mom saw me, her smile tightened. Dad didn't even look up. From across the room, Emma waved me over. "You're late." Fashionably, I replied. A glass of something citrus-flavored was handed to me. "They're showing the legacy video soon," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "You watched it?" "Oh, I got an early look. Let's just say it's basically Brenda's personal highlight reel. Travel photos, soccer awards, college acceptance, internship clips, all of it. And me?" She exhaled. "You're in a couple of baby pictures, and there's a slide that says Jake pursuing tech projects. That's it. Pursuing technological endeavors." The phrasing almost made me laugh. They summarized a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio like that. Perfect. When the lights dimmed, I quietly took a seat. The slideshow started. Brenda's sports montage, beach trips, childhood snapshots, wedding photos, music. They mentioned my name once, but not with any voiceover. Just the vague caption from earlier. My work, properties, growth, and years of effort were completely ignored. After the lights came up and the polite applause ended, Brenda grabbed the microphone. "Thank you, everyone," she began, smiling wide. "I'm grateful to be part of this wonderful family. The values Mom and Dad taught us, hard work, humility, resilience, made me who I am." I tilted my head. Hard work and perseverance. She talked endlessly about legacy, vision, passing the torch. It was a polished presentation. Then she said it. "I hope to carry that legacy forward. Maybe even bring the family together for a long-term project. Maybe investing together." There it was. The plan. She wasn't just changing her name. She was positioning herself as the new leader of the family, ready to guide them into future projects. I looked around. They were smiling, nodding, fully buying into it. The applause was genuine. "We all have a role to play," she finished, "and I'm excited to see how we can build together." I didn't clap. I already knew what was coming next. They had erased me from the family story, and assuming I'd stay silent was their mistake. I was prepared in a way they didn't expect. The room filled with polite claps and thin smiles as Brenda stepped down. She absorbed every bit of praise like a queen addressing her audience. People nodded and tapped their glasses. A few even patted her back as she walked off stage. I waited. I didn't rush. I didn't demand attention. I let the room settle. Then I stood. A few people glanced around. I looked at Uncle David. He gave a small nod. Emma raised an eyebrow. Brenda froze mid-sip, eyes narrowing. I approached the microphone. "Hey, everyone," I said, adjusting it calmly. "I promise I won't take long." I'd rehearsed this moment mentally many times, but now that it was happening, I wasn't angry. I was clear. "I just want to thank Mom and Dad for having me here. 40 years is a meaningful milestone, And this celebration is truly impressive. Brenda smiled stiffly, waiting for humor or a harmless comment. But since we're discussing legacy, I continued, I'd like to clarify a few things. You may have noticed the slide that mentioned I was working on tech projects. That's not incorrect, but it's incomplete. People shifted. The mood changed. So let me fill in the details. Some of you know me, and some of you don't. My name is Jake. I'm 30. I didn't go to college. I didn't earn a degree. I wasn't praised at dinners or recruited for sports teams. I didn't get tuition help, a car, or a graduation trip. I was on my own. I looked at my parents. Mom avoided my eyes. Dad stared at his drink. I did work on tech projects, I continued. I started building websites at 16, taught myself SEO, worked nights to save every dollar. I bought my first rental property at 26. Gasps rippled quietly. Since then, I've bought 9 more, duplexes, triplexes, and a few commercial properties. One of Dad's old friends owned a mixed-use building downtown. I closed on it recently. Dad's head snapped up, his mouth opened slightly. He knew exactly which building I meant. All of this was done without family funding or support, I said. I spent weekends repairing laptops while Brenda attended elite soccer camps. I biked to job interviews while her car was upgraded. Brenda crossed her arms and stood, her smile gone. I'm not saying this to brag, I added, but stories matter. They influence how we see one another. And this family story has been incomplete for far too long. I paused, letting that settle. I stayed quiet because I thought working hard would eventually speak for itself. But after watching a slideshow that erased me from my own family's narrative, I decided it was time to speak tonight. I took out my phone, and since Brenda mentioned investing together, I thought numbers might help. I turned toward the screen. Earlier, I'd sent files to the event organizer labeled Anniversary Photos, Last-Minute Additions. With one tap, the screen lit up. Slide 1, a photo of me holding the keys to my first duplex. Slide 2, a timeline of my real estate purchases. Slide 3, cash flow, appreciation, monthly revenue, passive income. Slide 4, before and after photos of the downtown commercial building. Slide 5, a simple note, net worth, $5 million. Gasps, whispers, silence. The final slide displayed a quote. I stepped back and said, "Sometimes the black sheep is just the person who stopped pretending." Nothing more. No anger, no theatrics. I returned to my table with complete composure, neither smug nor bitter, just done. Brenda looked stunned, like the ground shifted under her. Her mouth opened, then shut. She scanned the room for someone to deflect or distract. No one did. Aunt Michelle whispered something to her husband. Uncle Robert looked impressed. Younger cousins pulled out their phones, probably searching my name. The spell was broken. I wasn't invisible anymore. Brenda wasn't untouchable. The fallout came fast. As guests trickled out, I heard bits of conversations. Did you know Jake accomplished all that? I thought Brenda was the successful one. I heard he's been on podcasts. Imagine working that hard and being cut from the slideshow. While I packed up, Mom approached me. Jake, why didn't you ever tell us? I looked her in the eye. Would you have listened? She opened her mouth, closed it, and said nothing. Dad stayed silent, but Brenda followed me to the parking lot. Real mature, Jake, she snapped. Embarrassing your own family? You mean correcting the record? I asked. You hijacked the night, made it about you. No, I said while unlocking my car. You made it about you. I just stopped playing along. She moved closer. I turned to face her. You think this makes you better than me? She asked. No, I replied. It makes me free. The night air was cool as I drove home with the windows down. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't carrying anything. I didn't need approval. I didn't need acceptance. I belonged to myself. That's the thing about retaliation. It doesn't have to be loud or cruel. Sometimes the most effective response is living a life they can't deny, distort, or ignore. A life where facts speak louder than their stories ever could. And after that night, I made sure I would never be left out of the story again. They excluded me from the legacy, so I built my own.